Hi guys, welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. It's me, Steve Hall, and over the other side with the slick haircut that I imagine half the listeners at least must be jealous of because they can't get that at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Now you look 10 years younger.
Is it like this?
I don't know really.
I don't know.
The
veins are popping out here. Too lean still. No, yeah. Oh, mate. It felt. I know it sounds weird, right? And I'm probably also a little bit over-exaggerating when I'm saying like it felt so good to actually get a proper haircut. I mean, Katie's haircut was decent enough, and I could definitely have survived with long hair. I found a couple of pictures from back in 2004, so a very long time ago, where I had like hair up onto my shoulders, and I mean, it was just like I was 16 years old. I didn't take care of the hair. It was just like growing them long. But it just proved to me that I could easily get away with just like letting my hair grow without me caring that much about it. But having a decent haircut is just like nice. So yeah, feeling fresh, feeling back alive. And yeah, that's basically it. Sorry guys for everyone who wants a haircut desperately. And can't get it right now. Maybe soon. Who knows?
I'm so tempted. I have made this clear to Charlotte. I just want to shave it off. It's just frustrating.
Not again, Steve. Not again.
Know.
We know that one from back in 2017. And I still remember what you said, and you were just like, okay, shit, I shouldn't have done that.
I think it's one of those where I think, it sounds better than it is. And then you do it, and you're just like...
Yeah, that's true.
Especially when I've got a fatter face, I'm not sure it's going to work so well.
This was the same with me in 2017 when I thought it's a good idea to actually let my hair grow and also the beard at the same time.
The beard,
now I'm looking back and I just look like a homeless person. Like,
I will say the shorter beard definitely suits you better.
Yeah.
And especially when you've got the more chiseled face, is very good. It's a good look. Now we're just complimenting each other. And I guess the nice thing with the...
But I mean, you got a beard face as well. And also glass face. I mean, your glasses with the beard, man, this looks good, actually.
I was going to say, with the hairdressers opening, I guess there's a sense of normality is coming over in Germany at the moment. But you still don't have access to gyms, not close by at least. No. I guess you'd have to travel really far to get to one.
Yeah, a couple of states have already reopened their gyms for the first week here this last week. And haven't heard anything about it as of yet. I've seen one news story on the television. Or what I'm always doing is like checking that national news thing for like 15 minutes each and every single day just to catch up on what is going on. And they reported like from that studio, and you can't imagine how freaking packed it was. It was just like you saw this and so many people are just like sweating and breathing heavily without a mask on, and you're just thinking like, okay, sorry, but this can't be good. And I'm afraid that before my gyms will reopen, everything will once again be shut down. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
You don't want the second peak, do you?
Yeah, and there's so many things where I'm just like a little bit, man. Once again, I'm not a professional in that field, and thus I can't. I'm slowly at a point where I'm just like, okay, I can't even give my proper opinion on that because I'm lacking all of the context and all of the information that is necessary to make a good, rational statement. I do believe, though, that the politicians, they are trying to do their very best in the situation, and they are consulting with epidemiologists and virologists, and also at the same time, of course, they need to take into consideration the economy and all those effects as well. So what the politicians are doing at the moment, they are no one actually tells them like, okay, this is the best thing to do, right? Because we've never been in that situation. These are unprecedented times. So if people are then going out and complaining about either too many lifting of restrictions or too harsh of restrictions, it's just like, who are you to actually say that? Because you are probably not the professional as well, and you are massively biased, and your opinion is subjective, such as everyone else's. And the politicians need to make an objective decision that actually is the best. And we always just know in hindsight what it will be. We don't know whether Sweden with no lockdown at all is actually then the best thing. Yes, the death toll may spike very, very drastically and quickly, but maybe this is a good thing. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe right now, even though we're criticizing them, or some people are criticizing them, maybe it turns out that this was actually the right thing to do, right? Or maybe it wasn't. Maybe the best thing is something like Japan or Korea, who did a fantastic job in actually flattening the curve very quickly, right? We will first know in the future what the best approach would be, and thus coming out of their everyone crawls out of their caves and actually have an opinion on the matter of what is best at the moment. And I'm just at a point where I'm just like, okay, I will just wait and see what the politics are doing, and then I'm just hoping that it's the best decision. Yeah. And if not, then they probably acted on what they thought is the best way moving forward.
Yeah, I try and stay clear of too much of the politics and that sort of thing, because it's just so hard to comment on. You again, like you said, you just give your opinion. You don't know, and you certainly don't know better than, well, you might know just as much as someone like, why have I forgotten his name? Jeez, the American president, Trump. I saw a ridiculous clip with Trump. I don't know if he's just so racist. It's just unbelievable and so sexist. Yeah. I just saw a clip that someone posted, and like there was an Asian woman asking a question, and he was like, why don't you ask the people in China? And it was just like, are you serious? Would you say that to just like a white male? It was so bad. But yeah, I know I think it was Singapore, they opened things up and they had to close things back down. It might have been Singapore. So yeah, at the moment we don't have gyms opening for at least another 2 months. So, I mean, I've just been, like we said last time, I've just been kind of saying to clients, like, if you can pick up something now, like probably 2 months, we don't have to, but it might be something useful and maybe you can use it in future. And I know you picked up some new weights. You didn't actually tell me. I just saw it on your vlog.
Didn't I?
I don't remember you telling me, at least.
Okay. I wanted to keep it a secret for the vlog so that you actually need to watch it. No, nothing fancy though. Just, I was looking over at Craigslist, or like, I don't know if you got this over in the UK, like eBay, but more so for just for the local area.
I'm not sure. We have like Gumtree, it might be.
Okay, this is basically something like Craigslist here in Germany, right? The most well-known local marketplace. And I just looked at that one the entire time, each and every single day, like morning time and PM time, watching or looking for some weights, maybe some barbells just around here, the neighborhood. And then I saw those kind of weighted plates, like 4 times 10 kilograms and 4 times 5 kilograms. And then I just thought like, okay, decent price. I'm going to pick that up to just have additional weight. And yesterday had the first session in like 8 weeks. That was weighted, like properly weighted RDLs. Dumbbells, what was it? 42.5 kilograms on each side. And it felt so good. Like there is just something different to using proper load and proper weights when it is to especially loading the lower body.
What had you been doing before? I'm thinking that's going to be novel as hell. You're going to be sore as hell tomorrow.
I was always just doing like circuit training of frog pumps and hip thrusts.
Frog pumps.
I thought you may take it seriously as well. Basically,
when you said circuit, so I was like, you've been doing circuit, and then when you said frog pump, it gave it away.
No, I was basically doing the same things, just like I tried several different things. For example, with the RELs, there was a time where I had already those dumbbells from a neighbor, right? That was only, what was it, 15, 20 kilograms, 19 kilograms per dumbbell. So nothing crazy though. So what I've done then for a while is actually put a band around the dumbbells as well, stand on the band so that I have a little bit of a resistance when I'm going down, where it's not just like the strength curve is just like completely flattening out. That there's just a little bit more of resistance in the entire range of motion. This is what I've tried. Then I've tried something like banded good mornings or banded hip extensions, if you want to call it that. Also, what I've tried is now dumbbell front squats, if you want to call it that. Right, so I actually kind of cleaned it up to the shoulders with the dumbbells and then squatting down. Didn't feel, I mean, I can't load it too heavily then, because then it feels very, very odd. But with 20 kilograms on both sides together with a weighted vest, then I have like 70 kilograms on my frame, and then I can do the squats. And it gets me to around like 15 repetitions or so, which is decent enough. But it feels odd. It doesn't feel natural, and it's more exhausting for my stamina than it is for the musculature. I mean, I still go to close to muscular failure, but it doesn't really feel like, for example, like a hack squat where you really can just like go all out just from a muscular perspective. At some point, you're just like breathing super, super heavily because you've now done 15 repetitions with some weighted squats, and it's just like, am I now truly fatigued from a muscular perspective, or have the muscles just giving up because they didn't get enough oxygen?
Yeah. That's always the frustrating part with some training at home. And that's what we've always spoken about. Like, you can have effective training at home. You just make sure the muscle's the limiting factor, because you don't want it to just be awkwardness the limiting factor, or your CV. And just like when you're in the gym, like, it's just how clever can you be with your tools. But
I'm
it's
so
cool
much
that you've got some load.
Yeah, I'm so much looking forward to that hack squat machine again. Like, this is like a love that has left me, and I'm just like looking back and be like, oh shit, why has she left me? I need her back in my life.
And I only had a hack squat. I had a hack squat for like, I don't know, a mesocycle. Yeah. I'd been traveling to the other gym to get it, but my gym had just got a hack squat and I was just getting into it. So
yeah, that's true. I remember.
It's kind of frustrating.
Oh God. How has your week been then in regards to training and nutrition? Have you already increased your calories to like surplus calories?
Yes. So I've been eating. When I track it via MyFitnessPal, but my MyFitnessPal calories are different to when I plug them into the spreadsheet. As many of our clients will know, probably a lot of people listening, they don't just equate, because I don't know, foods don't track the fiber calories, or something's just a bit off. So
why is it always though so fluctuating? Because I really was trying to do a little bit of research why that is the case, right? And so many different answers, and never clear answers from MyFitnessPal or so. I have a couple of theories why that may be the case, but even then, it's not consistent in the inaccuracy of it. Do you think it has something to do with the fiber, that sometimes it just does count it as such, sometimes it doesn't? I don't know. Does it really take into account like a soluble fiber, insoluble fiber? Does it truly calculate each and every single different fiber type, like, I don't know, 2.1 kcals per gram, 3.2 or so? What do you think?
I looked into it a long time ago and I gave up, because probably came to the sort of conclusion you did, where it wasn't completely clear. But I know in the UK, because if we import foods from the US, they stick another sticker over it for the nutritional values, because they're like, fuck you, US people, you do stuff differently to us. We have different food standards. I think in the US, they may be allowed to subtract the fiber from the total calorie content, and also like sugar alcohols. I think maybe someone who's listening who's American knows this, whereas in the UK, it counts everything, so it doesn't subtract that. But you may end up eating something that does. And I think like the way they test foods might be a bit differently, and it's not like exact, like every gram of protein always has 4 calories or something. Some foods may have more or less if they're processed or not, and it's not just related to fiber. But I'm not completely sure. But this is the real good thing about this is we can't be exact. And so there is no point tracking your macros to the gram, because you can't track it to the gram. Especially when you think about things like, I don't know if you've ever eaten like prepackaged bagels or bread rolls, whatever it might be. And they say like estimated, it's like 150 grams, you weigh it and it's like, this is a 200 gram bread roll. That's a huge amount extra like calories within that serving. And obviously we're not always tracking that. So you can quite easily end up like eating more or less. So yeah, it's not, I always tell clients, like, they get a bit like, why is my MyFitnessPal different to like my macros when I enter them into the spreadsheet and it calculates them out? And like, it actually doesn't matter. So long as you're getting those macros, it doesn't matter to me. And we're tracking your body weight. It's not, we don't need to be that precise, and we can't be. So don't stress about it. So yes, sorry, on the calories. So in MyFitnessPal, I eat to 3,700 or just over. But when I put it into my spreadsheet, it's like 3,600 or something around there. So I'm not actually looking at the macros specifically. I'm also, I know I want around 230 protein, around 500 or so carbs, and then around like 60 to 70 fat, and equate to around 3,700 calories. And if I'm there, I'm happy with that, which should be around a 300 calorie surplus. I'm looking, I just literally did it now. I did my like long-term planner to like put how much weight I'm going to gain as like just a rough estimate, so I know where I am. And I forget what the multiplier was, but it was between gaining 0.125 and 0.25. Between that was like the rate of gain that I put in for. So I actually calculated out before I compete next time, I probably won't go much above 190 pounds, because it doesn't make sense to go above stage weight by like 30 pounds when I'm competing next year already. So yeah, anyway, yes.
Otherwise you would have done like a 0.25 up to 0.5% of body weight gain per week.
Yeah, it would have been, I'd just be gaining too rapidly. If I'm going to gain up over 200 pounds, I'm gaining like, that's a quick rate of gain actually. And I don't think an appropriate one is too fast. I had in my head, I wanted to hit an all-time high off-season body weight, but it doesn't make sense. Like, you think it took me 3 like years to get over 200 pounds, and now I'm trying to go to over 200 pounds, and like I am significantly heavier, like a good 10 pounds or so, 15 pounds, but that like it still doesn't make sense for me to push to an all-time new body weight. So I probably won't push much over 190 pounds this off-season, and I don't even think I have planned. At the moment, I don't even have planned like a mini cut. It's just like straight through. I'll probably have a little primer in between, and then a short cut like I did this time around, but even shorter, chop off 10 pounds, maintain, and then cut into the shows that we had planned. And I think I have like 18 weeks to lose like 10 pounds or something, which is reasonable when you're that lean.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's where I'm at. I'm already planned all the way up to next season's shows.
I think it's great because it's quicker there than you anticipate. I mean, we are already now in the midst of May. May until the end of the year is not that long, right? And this is only then the time window for gaining phase. And then it's straight into the contest prep already. So it's not really that far away.
It's really not. When I looked at it, I was like, how is there only... I don't have time to get that heavy. No. It doesn't make sense. No. I would have to cut too hard for too short. It's kind of scary, actually, how soon that's all kicking back in. But yeah, I'm enjoying the food. I'm a little bit nervous because of... And I'm actually... The good thing is, when I pushed to 200 pounds, I felt terrible. So I'm quite happy that knowing I hopefully won't feel terrible, because right now my appetite is great. I could eat 4,000 plus calories easily now if I needed to. My appetite is great. How's your surplus? How's it going? Are you in 3,000 yet?
Yeah, exactly. It's 3,000 calories now, because 2,700 is where I've been maintaining, and that's why I bumped it up now to 3,000. And as already said, I'm aiming for something like your rate of weight gain as well. Not because I'm stepping on stage next year, but more so because I just don't want to gain as quickly as I've done in the past. And for me, I know from previous gaining cycles that when I push the calories too quickly, that's all I'm doing. like I'm gaining quickly. I don't deviate too drastically from my maintenance before I'm seeing a rapid increase in body weight. And this is something that I simply want to avoid this time around. I want to just make it a little bit more smarter this time. And that also means then knowing what I know about myself and that all the data that I collected about myself, make use of that, because otherwise it would just be foolish, to be honest, right? For what are you collecting the data then for if you're not making use of that data? And we see it all the time that people are doing that, right? That they are just collecting a bunch of data and not making use of that. And this is something that I want to avoid, and that's why I'm aiming for something like in between. So what I said to myself is more so between 0.15 up to 0.25% of body weight gain per week. So it's basically, it's semantics. It's basically the same as you, right? It's nothing really of big of a difference. We're speaking about maybe 100 grams of a difference when it comes to the weekly rate of weight gain or so. And there's no reason for actually pushing it up too quickly. And also here, you see it all the time, right? That people are jumping straight into a caloric surplus and they are setting the calories too high. And what's the value in that? There isn't any. Right? Because we know that if your caloric surplus is too high, you won't synthesize muscle mass just like more rapidly. You will just, all the surplus will probably go into just like fat storages. But when you actually set it a little bit lower and you see that there's still room to actually push it up, you're still already in a net surplus. You're still already synthesizing muscle mass, but you could actually push it up a little bit higher to actually make even more use of the caloric surplus or take advantage of the situation that you're in without actually then the detriments. And this is how I approach it this time around, that instead of pushing it too quickly at the beginning, it's the other way around, actually taking it more slowly in the beginning. So basically the contrary to how I've done things in the past in regards to cutting and gaining. Back in the days, I was always one of those proponents of like start the cutting phase slowly, more conservatively, right? Because you don't want those adaptations to happen too quickly. You want your performance to still be good and all that kind of stuff. This has completely changed for me. I'm now a big proponent of like, okay, push when you can and pull back when you need to, right? And for the gaining phase, though, it's the other way around. It's not like, okay, you have now that anabolic opportunity, right? And that's why you have to push hard in the beginning and then pull back slowly after a while because of anabolic resistance. No, it's the other way around, I would say. Like, okay, take it more conservatively in the beginning and then push it up if you have to.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of the Revive Stronger member site. Inside, you'll find a thriving forum, a growing exercise library, presentations, research reviews, and courses. If you want to get involved, sign up via the description.
Yeah, I'm similar, but I think because of, at least I know myself and a lot of the people I end up working with, they end up spinning their wheels too often on a mass where they aren't pushy enough with calories because they're worried about the fat gain. So I think for me, I would prefer to be gaining a little bit too quickly than not gaining at all, which so often, and I know you know yourself, so your history isn't, you're not worried about not gaining at all. You're probably going to gain if anything. So, but people I work with and myself, sometimes I can just specifically remember a year of my life where I ended up basically maintaining the same weight the entire year. And it was just, I was fucking around with like 100 calorie changes here or there, up and down. And I didn't look very different by the end of that year, not surprisingly.
And this is where, once again, the individualization aspect of coaching comes into play, right? You're building a rapport of the athlete that you're working with, even if it's just yourself, and then you make the decisions that are appropriate for that given athlete. For some, it may look, in that instance, it may look to be a little bit more aggressive when it comes to the caloric surplus. For some, it's not that way. And it's never one way just. And I find it always fascinating that some people are just like, okay, but you said this. Yeah, generally speaking, but that doesn't mean that I'm doing it with each and every one of my clients. So just as an example, and I don't have to name names or so, with my saying of like that I don't find that deadlifts are a good exercise for hypertrophy, that doesn't mean that I never prescribe deadlifts. in certain situations, I still do, right? Especially when the person just likes deadlifts, is maybe built for deadlifts, maybe has then that good or very decent stimulus to fatigue ratio as well. And for some places, especially for beginners, of course, throw it in there as long as they are moving properly. So some people, especially females, I don't know what it is with females, but they have the ability to go in there and most of the time have very good execution with certain movements, especially like squats and deadlifts. They are just like moving well in the beginning, right? Also because they are not ego lifting most of the time. Mm-hmm. And because of that, it's just like, yeah, okay, you're moving well. You can be stronger. So we probably can actually implement something like the deadlift. However, for someone like you, for someone like me, it's simply not worth it. And this is where I'm just like, most of the people are like us we are talking to. And that's why it's just like, okay, I don't think it's a good bang for your buck. That doesn't mean that I never prescribe it. That is coaching, right?
No, I think it's well said. And I'd hate for people to take quotes from this and just be like, no, you said that, it's black and white. Unless we say it's like, I hate deadlifts, I never ever prescribe them. Yeah. Don't ever use a deadlift. It's not
for example, such as I do with starting strength and strongness, and I stand by that. Sorry, now I don't want to start that that debate in the comment section once again. We had that in one of the episodes just lately, so I'm sorry for everyone to piss them off again. Done that enough already this week. So.
I was going to say, is there anything else? How you feeling with the surplus? How's your mindset around you seeing the scale go up? Has it gone up? Has it moved?
No, funny enough, over the past days,
get the food up.
Yeah, it's crazy. Over the past days, this is very weird, because there was a time where where the weight creeped up to 78.7, even once touched 79 kilograms. And that was before I increased everything. That was, I think, 2 weeks after I stopped my cutting phase. It moved all the way up to 79 kilograms. And I was just thinking like, holy fuck, I was just like down at 76.4 just a couple of days ago. How is that even possible, right? We know why that is possible, but this is just like these thoughts that you're having in that moment. That being said though, over the past 3-4 days, I was below 78 kilograms. And here today, I have my lowest weighing in the last 4 weeks or so. So today I was weighing in at 77.6, which is funny. I mean, yeah, it just goes to show that the scale weight is just this, right? It is one metric that you sometimes, it's a good metric, especially if you're trying to be very consistent, if everything else is very consistent as well. But if you have like fluctuating meals, such as you are always eating different things on a daily basis at different times, especially, the scale becomes less and less of a good metric to pull data from.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny, sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And this is why we've talked about it before, like, just as an example, like diet breaks. You take someone through a diet break and there is multiple of, like, you might expect, okay, diet break, we're going through maintenance calories, so you should just maintain weight. But you might gain weight, you might lose weight. Like, I've had every single situation you could think of during a diet break, so I can never predict it for a client. It's just maybe after going through several, we can. So it's interesting that that's happened to you. I'm always happy when my weight just like nicely linearly just increases. That's always nice, but it's so rare. And just like in a deficit, it's so rare for it just to nicely linearly decrease. So I have been gaining though, so I know I'm in a surplus. Like I mean, I've seen some new heavies, but nothing crazy. But I do it in pounds, so it just confuses everything.
Once again, as I already said But as I said in the past, maybe I'm switching the scale to pounds as well, just to make me a little more comfortable to see the scale weight going up, because when I hit 180 pounds, it's not as psychologically demanding for me. And I don't know, it's also seeing like different numbers on the scale than I'm not used to. Instead of seeing like, okay, this is the barrier, and especially and this is just typical human psychology. This is also something that you see in the stock market. Those round, big numbers are just like a little bit daunting. And everyone probably can relate to that when they are approaching a weight that they've never touched. Something like, I don't know, squat or deadlift, 200 kilograms. People just like become scared or a little bit motivated, but sometimes it's just like a barrier or hurdle that they can't overcome for a very long time because it's just like they put too much emphasis on that number. And the same would probably now happen for me, going once again above the 80 kilogram mark. It's still far in the future, but I haven't been at that body weight where I'm at right now since like 2017. And 2017, I was only there for a very short period of time. I'm feeling good. And because of that, it also, of course, then plays with your psychology of like, okay, with the weight gain and going above the 80 kilograms, seeing just like the 8 in front of the other digits, it's just, it can be a little bit messing with you.
I think you get the same with when you're losing, don't you? Like I know I've got certain barrier weights that I'm like, oh, I'm not going to get under that. And it just becomes uncomfortable. What was I going to say? I was going to say, so I think in your previous off season, you didn't take too many progress photos, I believe. I don't know if that's true. Are you going to be more consistent with doing that as well?
Yeah, just to keep myself accountable, because this is something that I said like 2 or 3 podcasts ago. And so many people were actually resonating with that as well and putting the blindfold on, that analogy. And just like putting the blindfold on just to ignore reality is never a good idea. And especially when you're self-coaching and you don't have an objective eye that can actually then tell you like, okay, we are overdoing things now. We need to pull back. You just gained a little bit too much fluff here, and it's time to actually strip back the fluff a little bit. If you're coaching yourself, you have to be that objective eye. And if you can't do that because you're not taking physique pictures, because you're not stepping on the scale, it's like you are leaving it up for chance. And when has that ever been a good thing, in my opinion? Probably never, right? Because you're just like hoping for the best. But hope is not the best approach in actually making progress, in my opinion, right? We all hope for the most muscle mass outcome on the least fat gain. But how can we best control that? It's probably not in just ignoring the facts or just like hoping for the best outcome. It has never worked out.
Yeah, I find, I don't know if you've had this with some clients, Pascal, but I've definitely had it with some who are a bit uncomfortable with how they look in their off season, and so they don't like taking the photos. And I'm kind of like, can you just do it for me, because ignorance isn't bliss to it. And even if you don't have to look over them, but let me look over them. And oftentimes, like I look at them, I have some positive things to say, and then they're like, oh, actually, you're completely right. I can see like. They could only see their flaws. They could only see the areas where they gain fat. And I'm like, that's happening. But look how big your delts are now. Look how like muscular and thick your back is looking compared to where it was last time. So yeah, I'm glad that you're going to be keep yourself a bit more accountable, have those photos. It's definitely something I want to document more clearly as well.
Like, for example, take those pictures and delete them from the phone after you've uploaded them or sent them to your coach.
Yeah.
And then you're not running risk of like looking at them the entire time and feeling bad about them.
This is something I did with the scale. Was I got into, I could say this can work for some people. I don't think it works for everyone. Where in my mass phase, I very often I'd step on the scale, take a photo, and it might be even a month of doing that without actually putting it into a spreadsheet and seeing my rate of gain. And as long as it was going up, and not crazy fast, I was okay with it. And I just didn't take too much notice. And then I'd put it into the spreadsheet and look at it. Maybe a month was a little bit too long, because I think sometimes I maybe got a bit complacent or potentially gained too fast. I'm pretty happy with how it ended up being, but maybe like every 2 weeks rather than doing it every week and over assessing it. Just like I guess you won't be taking photos weekly. It's more like monthly at the end of the mesocycle.
Same as what I do with nearly every one of my athletes. Like monthly basis is absolutely fine. Also, even at the beginning of a cutting phase, because you're not expecting to see massive changes on a weekly basis, and sometimes it's just an additional stressor for the people, and you want to make it as convenient for them as possible.
Agreed. Cool. Question time?
Yeah. let's head over to
Sweet. So I have Andrew White, our supporter from Patreon. So thank you, Andrew.
Man.
He has asked fat loss strategy question. Right, it's got to see more. It's quite a long question. Do you guys think that dieting on higher food with more energy output, like increased steps or lifts, truly yields the same outcomes to dieting on lower food with less energy output, assuming all else is equal? Assuming proper hypertrophically stimulating training and a high protein diet and control for all other variables. He says, I ask because I personally would have thought that a negative energy balance is all that's required. But anecdotally, I have found that dieting on higher food and higher steps gives me much a better overall look, greater fullness, incredible pumps during sessions, etc., than dieting on peasant calories. All thoughts appreciated. You guys are amazing. Keep up the phenomenal work. Ooh, that's very nice. I'm going to like that.
Thank you very much, Andrew, and thank you very much for your support over on Patreon. So my opinion, so this sounds a lot like the G-Flux theory, right? Of having a higher energy expenditure, but having the same amount of then a caloric deficit or food intake. So when you are eating or having an energy expenditure of, let's say, 5,000, and you are just a very active individual and you are maintaining on 5,000 calories, it's assumed that you will have a better body composition than someone who is just maintaining on 2,000 calories, right? Because he's just living or she's just living a sedentary lifestyle. I don't know how well supported that claim or assumption is. I know where it comes from because I've read back in the days that John Berardi from Precision Nutrition, I think, was one of the first who came out with that one. I also know that Mass has covered one article or one study about that. I haven't read that article though, so I'm not really up to date when it comes to what they've covered there. But the theory was, when we are looking at all of those athletes, professional athletes, they most of the time actually have a quite decent shape, even though that their caloric intake is actually quite high as well. And there may be something to that, right? There may be something to it, maybe something that we can't explain at the moment. But at the same time, I also can remember that Eric Helms himself, back in the days, even said something against the G-Flux theory. And I think it was more so on the fact that it could be a detrimental outcome when this is the case, that some people would actually then try to actually unnaturally increase their energy expenditure just to be able to eat more, have the same maybe caloric deficit, and then a better outcome. However, when you are not normally that active and you are forcing yourself to go out and increase the energy expenditure to a certain level that is unsustainable maybe for you, it could actually then backfire on you because you now your energy requirements for all of those different tasks so much more higher, and you haven't got adjusted to that energy expenditure or output over the time frame of like maybe months or years. So it could possibly be that then it is actually backfiring on you. You get perhaps even more sedentary the rest of the day. Maybe you are getting more systemically fatiguing after like a couple of weeks or so, just like a typical burnout sensation or so. And then for what was it worth then? Right? And this is always then where I'm just like, I see where this idea is coming from. I would love that this is the case. I can also, it's compelling to me, that idea, but I haven't yet seen any compelling evidence. That being said, though, once again, I haven't seen that study that what Mass was covering, or whether they were covering just like the idea behind it. Maybe you have seen that and can say something to it, Steve.
I wish I could. I can't because I haven't looked at it recently. What I will say is my thoughts are very much in line with yours, and I found myself nodding through as you were speaking through things, because I think there's definitely something to it, but there's certainly limits to it as well. And when I think anecdotally for my clients, if I ever try and push their steps beyond their means, essentially, it just becomes not only physiologically quite fatiguing and exhausting. Psychologically, the stress there is just so high that it starts to have negative outcomes for their performance and things like this. I imagine being more active, again, to a point, you're going to potentially be maybe slightly like utilizing nutrients a bit better, because like you're going to be kind of like, I don't know, creating some greater insulin sensitivity because you're being more active now and then. So you're having better kind of partitioning of carbohydrates and usage via that platform. But again, I think there's limits to it. I think for someone who's quite sedentary, if they were to slightly increase what they're doing, I think there's definite big outcomes and big benefits. I reckon there will be. But for someone who's already pretty moderately quite active, I think if they go much higher, like maybe they get a bit from being a bit more active and being able to eat a bit more, but I think there's certainly a limit to it. What I will say is, because we got obviously Ada, our dog, and I was walking to the gym twice a day, my steps were averaging around 17,000. The cut that I recently did was one of the best and easiest that I've ever done. Now, there might be multiple reasons for that, and there definitely is, and there's other reasons that I could argue that have caused that. But I did like that I was dieting on more food, and I did find that I was able to have like better pumps and things. But I'm just saying, I think maybe a little bit less than what I was doing could have actually brought maybe even better result, because I did find that was a lot of steps, and that could cause systemic fatigue, and maybe I could have trained harder and better. But again, I think, there's more to it than just the calorie deficit here.
Yeah, and let's keep two things in mind. First and foremost, we are not professional athletes. Our day isn't revolving around just having the best performance or practicing for the, I don't know, for a tournament, for a specific game or so, right? So our day isn't structured like this. We get up, have our first training session, have something to eat, can rest, then second training session or so, have something to eat, someone who's taking care of us, someone who's giving then us a physiotherapy session or so, then we are once again going out on a pitch or so. This is not what our day looks like. We are not professional athletes that are getting paid to only do that, because then possibly we could get away with that, because we are seeing this with people such as, for example, CrossFit athletes who are training like 5 times out of the day, different skills, and probably their energy expenditure is just like incredibly high. But also it must be said that they've probably increased the amount of that they are doing like over years leading up to that. Right? And also they are probably the genetic elite that then can get away with that and recover from that on time to be ready. Also, it must be said that when we're taking a look at some of the scientific literature with the Hadza, for example, there has been some very interesting evidence and studies about adaptive metabolism. So
the tribe, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not, so they are very, very active, right? But it seems like that there is a certain threshold that they are not then exceeding, because they are so much more active in comparison to the Western society. There's not that much of a difference in regards to the metabolic output. And that is very interesting, because that indicates that some other physiological processes are then taking place, so that the energy expenditure is not just going just wild up to something like 10, 20,000 calories or so, but that there is somewhat of a threshold where the body doesn't really exceed that. And this also then needs to be taken into consideration. So I think everything beyond this natural threshold is just a disruption, a homeostatic disruption for the entire system. And everything that is a homeostatic disruption is a stress, and the stress will cause a certain response from the body. But if you induce too many stresses, this is, of course, then demanding for your entire system. And that's why also when you then go up to a certain amount, I don't think that then it will be beneficial, but actually detrimental in that outcome. And then I think you're running into other issues. I think it's like you said, when you are very sedentary, going up to a certain level, it's probably beneficial. And I would assume that then there's a better outcome. But if you artificially try to increase it to beyond this possible theoretical threshold, I think then it becomes detrimental. And the further you push above that, the more detrimental it becomes.
Yeah, I'd agree. And it's cool that you brought up that study. It makes a lot of sense. Like, imagine if we could just burn infinite amounts of calories. Like, that doesn't make any sense for survival, does it? Yeah. So it makes it, I mean, yeah, it'd be cool if we could find a hack to just eat more. But I think you nailed it. Just like, if you go too far away from your homeostasis where you're comfortable, the stress is not going to be worth the extra benefit that it's giving you. So try maybe eking it up over time, just like trying like volume. Maybe there's like a maximal recoverable output, just totally. There definitely is. And maybe that's like you have a minimum level and then you have like this middle range that works very well for you, and you can kind of taper back down depending where you are. So that's certainly like what we end up doing with clients, is like maybe I try and find their threshold for like what's reasonable number of steps if they're dieting. And sometimes they're like, Steve, I just not more than 9,000, and it's just a pain in the ass. And I'm like, okay, now we have to pull away from food, or like, again, there comes in the practical application of it. Like, not everyone can just burn more energy. If you have a lot of things going on with your life, you're not going to be able to do that much cardio, steps, and things like that.
I wonder how much energy Forrest Gump expended when he did the walk through America. Shall we go to the next question?
Let's do it. Right. It is from our man, Andrew Pottercheck.
Absolutely.
And he has asked, what's the difference? No, wait. What's the diggest?
I think the biggest.
No, amazing. Diggest. I like diggest. The diggest increase of weights that has shocked you on a lift. You thought you'd never lift 100 kilogram when you started lifting, or from one off season to the next. And did it make you think about something you changed and thought, maybe that had something to do with it? What an interesting question.
I can't recall that anymore, to be honest, because ever since I'm not into powerlifting anymore, I have put less and less stock into the weight on the bar, actually. That's why I can't really recall that there has been a time where I was just like stoked about like, oh yeah, this is now the kg on the bar. And I mean, yeah, I found it cool when I was able then to do incline press for 100 kilograms for 10 repetitions, or squats for 170 kilograms, but it didn't really shock me because I worked my way up to that.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Very interesting. I've said this before, and like I said it on my story a long time ago, like for my off season, sometimes I check my logbook and I'm like, oh, that was a PR, like, and they just come. I'm not kind of, I know a lot of trainees and that they really enjoy it. They're very focused on mechanical tension and going in and hitting new PRs, new numbers, putting out weight on the bar every session. But I'm much more of kind of the Brian Miner type of ideology, where it's you grew muscle already, that's allowed you to lift that weight. You don't need to lift that weight to grow new muscle necessarily. It's the work you've done beforehand that's allowed you to get there. Just like buying a house. It's not like buying the house isn't the thing that's allowed you to buy the house. It's all the work that you've done, like all the years prior, that's allowed you to accumulate that money to buy that house. So I don't like I'm not focused on weights. But I did, just one that was for me was, I think it might have been 100. I think it probably was 100 kilos on the bench, and I lifted it. And you killed this as sounding anything decent because you said you lifted 100 for 10 on incline, but I think mine was 100 for 10 on flat. And I was like, wow, like that's big for me. And I mean, in terms of something I changed or thought, maybe that had something to do with it. Just for me, the more confident I've got in the principles that I'm following for hypertrophy and executing my plan without fail, it's just the results just come. And it's not down to any small tweak or any clever thing. It's just having confidence in my plan and not being swayed by opinions or by like new research that's just like a flash in the pan. It's kind of consistently doing what I know is going to provide results.
And even though that I killed it for you, buddy, you're so much bigger than I am. So what does it matter what weights you've been lifting there? Like, honestly. I always said like I was decently strong, and what did it get me in regards to hypertrophy? I'm still smaller than most of the people out there. So yeah,
that's such a it's a very nice and honest example. I'm glad that we actually have such a very clear one between us, because not that I'm certainly not massively bigger than you, but maybe I have a little bit more muscle, but you're definitely stronger than me on especially pressing movements. And like, just so many people would think, oh no, if I saw that on paper, then the guy lifting, well, I mean, if you were all things being equal and you didn't know any better, you'd think you would have the more muscular chest. But it's by no means clear that that's definitely true, because there's a lot more things that go into strength.
Or a bigger triceps or so. And then we could compare those two with another, right? You got bigger arms than I have, a much bigger chest. And still, I mean, yeah. I think I've never, so when there was a time where I was repping like 130 kilograms on the bench.
That's like my 1 rep max.
Yeah. And I've never, and that was the time where I was already training for hypertrophy, and I wasn't even testing my 1 rep max. I pushed my body weight up very, very much though, so it could also be a little bit due to the leverages. But probably just from my total all-time 1 rep max that I've ever done on the bench, which was a touch and go 145 kilogram bench. And that was like back in 2016, right? I think I could have probably gotten up to something like 150 or so. If you then think about it and compare our physique to another, you would never assume that I'm the one with such a big discrepancy to your bench press. So it doesn't really matter that much. Strength is a skill that is mostly driven by neurological adaptations and technical efficiency. Right, and also, of course, morphology as well. And if you then take that into consideration, yeah, I mean, come on, no, it may be somewhat correlated to hypertrophy, but just in a very, very small sense.
Yeah, it's always a frustration of mine when people get too focused on the weight on the bar, and it's just, for us, it actually doesn't matter, so long it's the proximity to failure that's actually mattering for us. So as long as your intensity's there and you're seeking to progressively overload, and that might be load on the bar, it doesn't matter what that load is. Pure example of someone that the listeners might know, because I've shared him on my story a fair bit, is Elias. Some of the best quads, just crazy quads. He would never say that he's like a fantastic squatter. He's not that strong at squatting, but people would be like, oh, surely, like, I don't know, surely he has the best squat, but it's not, because he's not made necessarily for squatting. He's made to have very big quads that get like grow from barely any volume. Sweet.
But this is just to end there. I think this is fantastic. Well, you have said it fantastically. Like, some people are made to be strong, and some people are made to carry a lot of muscle mass. They don't necessarily go hand in hand with another. There's a certain potentiality or potential to then a carryover to one or another, but it's not a definite correlation.
Well said. Cool. We get to Roman Galm's question. He said, 1, he does have 2 questions. Which hip hinge movement favor hams the most and glutes the least? RDL or hyperextension?
I would assume that it's the RDL. But this is just like a gut feeling of mine, because of just like the mechanical tension and also the eccentric loading. Whether this is truly the case, I don't know. Do you think, Steve?
It's one of those.
I'm just thinking, like, does it really matter? Like, first and foremost, from an individualization perspective, like, some people will probably get a really, really good stimulus out of something like hyperextension, because, I don't know, their upper body is just like super, super long, and RDLs, the center of gravity, moment arms, lever arms, is just like a little bit weird for them. But yeah, once again, I think just because you can load RDL so much heavier in the mechanical tension, and especially the eccentric portion of the lift, may cause a bigger hypertrophic stimulus. But this is just like my assumption.
I'd say you see all these booty girls doing all these hyperextensions. It's got to be that creates, there's more glute there. But I think you said it rightly. I mean, I'm not aware of any good research that has shown this movement's more hamstring over glute than this movement. And I think you're right in that it's going to depend on your biomechanics, and probably you try both and see which one you're necessarily getting better results from. And you may not be able to tell. You might not know. Like, I don't know, for me, whether or not an RDL or hyperextension is working my hams more than my glutes necessarily. I do like with the hyperextension, at least like at the top, you can shorten the glutes and they are under load more so than on the RDL. But again, that's just me talking through the list and basic biomechanics of the lift. So yeah, I mean, I can't say. But if you were saying to me, or Pascal, I think we both agree, like if I wanted to grow my hamstring, should I do an RDL or hyperextension? If that was black and white, you could only do one or the other. I'd probably say the RDL in most cases is going to build your hamstrings more. And then he said 2, to perform the hyperextension, how do you perform the hyperextension to focus on the hamstrings? You
basically brought it up kind of. Do you want to elaborate on that? You said like, okay, you can shorten the range of motion, or like the shortening range, and thus activate the glutes a little bit more.
So yeah, I think Brett has this, he's kind of done a lot of videos on kind of using the hyperextension to more so isolate the glutes over the hamstrings. And that's where he's like allowing people to have their upper back very rounded over, and like you can just see the glutes are just being like very much hit. Whereas when I'm performing the hyperextension, because I do care about my glute hypertrophy, but if I could have maximize hamstrings and quads over glutes, I will do that each and every day, because that's where I lack more than my glutes. I perform it where I've got I keep my chest high and have an arch, and I find that creates more tension on the hamstrings over the glutes. I don't know why changing that position does have that impact. Again, I don't know biomechanics to the degree that I'd need, but I don't know if you have any better insights than that.
No, not a biomechanics expert, and I don't even want to go there before I'm getting like bashed and trashed from the biomechanic experts.
On that note, I know I said it to you recently where I was like, I want to get more educated on biomechanics because it's obvious that it's becoming more and more of a popular area in our space. And because it's becoming popular, I want to look at things and know whether or not that's true or not, essentially. Yeah. Or like that person is like, I don't know, just like you want to get more educated on nutrition, then you can kind of identify who knows their shit and who necessarily doesn't. And I wasn't sure where to start. But I did just message Miguel recently, and he recommended Integra. So I might be looking to see what courses they provide, just get a bit more clued up, because I know there's a lot of people out there that do provide stuff, and like a lot of them look very good. It's just like I actually don't know where to start. So biomechanics, we know easily enough to get us a fantastic results. It's just having that nice understanding for when questions like this come up, or like specific scenarios. It would be nice just to know exactly.
I'm kind of, so I'm into motorbikes, right? I can fix most of the things myself, but when it comes to all the crazy things about, I don't know, fixing the engine, right? Actually, putting it together once again, and all these kind of things, I've never done it because there's so many small pieces that I have no idea what they actually do. Right? I can do the basic maintenance work very easily, right? And I also mostly know for what it's there for. But when it comes to those small minor things that actually make the entire thing work, I have no idea what they are doing, and that's where you kind of know how the machine is running, but when it comes to like, okay, why is it that this small piece is actually then moving this small piece, and what is it actually that it's doing, right? It's the same here as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Next question. Let's just go for John Jones. John Jones has asked, what do you think about doing an isolation movement as part of your warm-up for a compound lift. It's less specific to the lift itself, but I was thinking it could add to the mind-muscle connection of the targeted muscle without the fatigue concerns expressed in the roundtable on pre-exhaust techniques.
I just want to say, like, okay, if you haven't listened to the pre-exhaust roundtable, then I would say, like, okay, try to have a listen at that one first. I think, once again, what we've talked about, like, there may be exceptions to the rule. And we are always, most of the time, when we are talking about specific things, talking about generalizations. And in that instance, I would say no. I wouldn't recommend that, especially when you're doing something like, let's just say, like a leg extension, because this is an example that has been brought up there as well, before leg presses or before squats or so, because you're causing actually quite a bit of fatigue already, and then you're taking away what you've been able, or what you would be able to do on something like a leg press, which has just a high motor unit recruitment. So why do you want to actually take that part away from those bigger lifts? When you want to actually reduce the systemic fatigue, that's a different thing. But I don't think that you should take away from the muscular stimulus that you can provide with those heavier compound lifts. That's why I'm a very, very hesitant in actually putting any kind of isolation lift before a heavy compound lift, if it's not for the purpose of decreasing the systemic fatigue that exercise is then having. But then we can always also bring up the argument, why are you then doing this systemically fatiguing lift at all? Why aren't you then doing something that is less systemically fatiguing, such as, so why are you doing the back squats? Why aren't you then going over to the hack squats? And then you could probably get away with actually then doing them as the first movement. And if you then have issues with the mind-muscle connection, I think it should be so much more of a focus to actually go into that lift fresh and not pre-fatigued, so that you are able to work on that. Because otherwise it's kind of a workaround, in my opinion, right? You're putting makeup on the wound just to cover the wound, so that people aren't seeing that. And I would always try to address that and make it happen as well. And even if it takes you like 5 warm-up sets for the hack squats to really make it feel right, then so be it. But really pre-fatiguing it with an isolation movement is, I think, not the best bang for your buck in that instance.
Yeah, I think this was because we've had the pre-exhaust roundtable with Alex and Mike, and then we also had essentially a very similar kind of talked about pre-exhaust quite a lot with Mike and Coach Kassem, and this example was brought up in terms of using like the leg extension before the squat, and essentially what you taught through there was similar to the conclusions that they were coming out with. And even like when you're squatting, like what if you can change the squat to be a bit more isolation like? So maybe you're doing a low bar squat, well, easy fix, start doing a high bar squat, you'll feel that way more on the quads. So yeah, I just agree with a lot of things you're saying in that regard. And all I would say is I do think there's something to maybe not even pre-exhaust or pre-fatigue, maybe just a just warm up. So you can do an isolation lift, like, I don't know, you might do like a lat pull-in or like straight arm push downs or lat press. You could do those, not fatigue yourself, just warm up if you want to feel things more in the lats before like back exercises. I did that for a while because I just had a terrible mind muscle connection with my lats when doing back. But that's a warm-up, not fatiguing them, because I think, yeah, you land into a few of the issues that you mentioned. And then, yeah, like you said, like you could pick an exercise that isolates that muscle group better.
I think it may also have a lot to do with the pump. So with warming up a specific muscle group so that there is an increased blood flow already happening into that area, because that is basically what a pump is, increased blood flow into a certain area. So when it comes to this, right, there's a clear difference between warming up and also doing an isolation movement already and doing an exercise, because an exercise is definitely causing fatigue of especially also muscle fibers. And is that really beneficial if you're then going to something like a compound movement? I don't think it is, right? So what you rather could do is find ways to actually then already create some blood flow into that area so that it's properly warm up and that the blood flow into that area can be more easily achieved. So one trick that I could recommend you do is actually have a static hold of just like squats. So what I mean by that is squat down, just body weight squats is all you need, or maybe just like with an empty bar, squat down and stay in that position for like a minute. Your legs will actually create kind of a blood flow restriction kind of sensation. So blood will come in there, but maybe you are suppressing the blood flow of going back again just a little bit. And by that, the legs should actually be a little bit pumped without that muscular fatigue, because you're just sitting in that position. Same goes for you, what you said, like with maybe some bands, right? Just to warm yourself up a little bit, get some blood flow into certain areas. And yeah, it's more something like this I would more sort of recommend.
Cool. Yeah, I think I was just thinking in terms of how often have I even used pre-exhaust. I've only really ever done like isolation into compound supersets for the use of metabolite like style thing. So like a leg extension into like a sissy squat. Well, it's not, I could do a sissy squat. That is actually what I've done, but that's not necessarily compound, but maybe a goblet squat or something like that where you pre-fatigue. But that's for a metabolite accumulation. For like mechanical tension, like it's not something I've done a whole lot of. It's not something I'm massively experienced with. And I think it is something that's left to much more advanced lifters. And I think it could cause more problems than it solves if you're not very careful with it. So yeah, it's not something I'm like very experienced with and super comfortable with recommending things.
Cool. That's
so we come to the time.
Yeah, so over an hour again.
Damn.
Yeah.
There's nothing to announce, unfortunately, is there?
No.
Just come join the member site now.
It is. Then you can actually see the weights are picked up the last week, for example.
And your training and some back gains.
Yeah, and also just like me training topless, which I'm not someone who shares like myself topless a lot of times because of my insecurities when it comes to that. And then you can see that actually.
It was very cool. And I have,
and very
we have
sexy.
some cool very sexy,
I was just
very
waiting
cool.
for that.
We're coming back to that.
It was very cool and very sexy. Oh.
And Miguel recently actually released a very specific presentation lately, didn't he?
Yeah.
It was to do with the COVID and psychological responses to that. So actually, I haven't watched it yet. I'm excited to watch that. So if people are struggling at this period of time, or you have clients struggling, it can be a really valuable thing to look at. And it always baffles me because I've had someone message me the other day being like, is there a free trial? And I was like, there isn't at the moment. But it's $6.99 for a month. Like you can cancel it immediately if you want to.
Yeah,
it's like a couple of coffees, so it's not going to break the bank.
And one presentation is worth the $6.99 already. And we have like I don't know how many we got there, 50 or so already. And this is just like one of those things. So yeah, guys.
Why not?
Thank you very much for listening. As always, leave a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button if you always want to stay up to date when we are releasing a new video. I mean, we are always releasing at the same time, but do it anyway, because that helps the YouTube algorithm. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, and I guess I speak to you guys next week.
See you guys. Thank you. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.